Financial advisors can learn a lot from influencers. Now, before you leave, I'm not saying that advisors should dance on TikTok, chase likes, or turn serious financial planning into entertainment. But the best creators understand something that many advisors still ignore today. And they know how to capture attention. They know how to explain difficult ideas simply. They know how to show up often enough to be remembered, and they know how to make people feel seen. Now, in a world where clients are overwhelmed and they are distracted and they are unsure of who to trust, those are the social media skills. Those are not just social media, media skills anymore. They are business skills. So today we're asking one simple question. What can advisors learn from people who are really good at getting attention without losing the trust and the depth that advice requires?
Welcome to Propulsion, the weekly show for financial planners and advisors who want to build better, more successful businesses. I'm your host, Francois du Toit, and every week we dive into the practical strategies that matter, from growing your client base and improving your services to developing yourself and your team. Whether you're running your own practice or you're part of a larger firm, you are guaranteed to find actionable insights to help your business thrive. So with that, welcome, and let's get into today's episode.
So I will probably be the first person to say, like, when I hear the word influencer and finfluencer, I tend to just switch off, right? Just go like, like, do these people even know? And, all they're really trying to do is sell something. I'm like, can't you go and do your own proper homework kind of stuff? Like, and then instead of listening to influencers and that kind of stuff. But, I guess the reason is because we think about, like, there's a lot of noise here, and they just get onto trends, and maybe even it's about vanity, and also people they just want attention for the sake of attention. Look at me, and we sort of shut off. But I think from what I've seen over the years, and there are people that we all follow and that we are comfortable to follow, and then there's those ones that we absolutely avoid. And the best creators, like the best ones, the ones that we tend to follow, they are not only good at being seen, they are good at being understood. It's easy to understand what they're saying. It's easy to listen to them. You can binge like a lot of their content for hours if you wanted to, without feeling like, okay, now I've had enough. They know how to explain, how to connect, how to repeat, tell stories, and build trust. One of my biggest issues is, like, once I've spoken about a topic, I tend to not speak about or write about it again. It always feels to me like I've got to do something new. And I mean, I've been doing this for many years now. But if you look at creators that are really successful and are really trusted in that, they repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. And I think this is also one of the things where we often think, but Francois already spoke about this. Why would I also want to speak about this topic? So, like, for example, buying your first home, buying your first car, getting your first paycheck, all those kinds of things. Like, why would I want to make a video if 4 other or 10 other or 100 other financial advisors already did that? But that's what the great creators do. They create their own content about a topic that people are interested in. And they build trust with people who are actually busy and who's distracted and all that kind of stuff. So today's episode, I promise you, is not about becoming an influencer at all, or a influencer or anything like that, or even to say you've got to go and build a social media following and do all this stuff. That's very helpful. That's not what I'm saying. I think there are principles that we can take from this and that we can deploy in the way that we work. And there are certain principles that's undeniable in terms of how valuable they are and what they do and what they mean. So it's all about learning from them so that, because they understand attention, and how can we apply that in our work. So that's what I want to talk about really today, and give you some ideas. There's about 7 different things I want to talk about and share that with you, because we need to be able to communicate better. We shouldn't be hiding. And this is one of the things that I see. I mean, we often have these conversations with advisors who say, well, I have all these things I have to share with my clients because regulation requires it. If there's a problem, I must show that I disclosed everything, that I discussed everything, that everything was clear. But looking at TCF and looking at COFI, we also now have to prove that the client actually understood. So giving more information is not really the answer. Rather distilling what's really important to them and what are the things they absolutely need to get. And then looking at how does our process actually support that and give us sufficient time to do that? Because that's the other problem, right? We still want to work like in the way that we worked many years ago when 1 or 2 meetings was sufficient. It hasn't been for many years. Like we need 3, 4, 5 meetings with the client just from the time they become a client to the planning or the onboarding, the planning and sort of getting to a thing, right? But we try and do it as quickly as possible. And then we wonder why, but I explained this to the client and the client doesn't get it. We haven't repeated things enough. We haven't given them time to really take in what we've said and to really distill this. I mean, how many times have we sat in a classroom and we hear something and the teacher or the lecturer or somebody explained it, but only after the 3rd, 4th, 5th time did we actually get it. After I went back home and I read it and I watched some videos and I tried to do some exercises, then we started to get it. Yet we think that when we explain something once to a client that now that's going to be sufficient. So anyway, so the first lesson that I want to impart or share with you that I'm taking from what influencers are doing is that influencers explain things simply. The best creators, they take complicated ideas and they may just make it easy, or at least they make it feel easy so that people don't feel stupid. I think that's really important. And that's a skill that we all need to have. And that's something that we learn to do, right? I think we often explain things from our point of view and with our knowledge, and we forget that clients are not there. And even when we think we use plain and simple language, we don't really do, because we still throw in little words in there. Critical illness, we think people should know what a critical illness is, or severe illness. Some people will use actually the product benefit name, maybe like living lifestyle, like what the hell is that? So just because it's so part of us and part of our language, we think like, but everybody should know. And then we forget sometimes that's, and it's not like, if a thing is called a thing, you can't really necessarily change that, but at least we need to add on, okay, so when we say severe illness, what does that mean, right? So those kinds of things are really important. And just because we're making things simple doesn't mean that we're making it shallow or that we strip out the detail. It just means that we're clear enough so that the client can repeat that idea later. We could even in a meeting say to the client, you know what, we can just ask, do you have any questions? But in most instances, they'll go like, no, I'm fine. Understand. So we could actually ask them, would you be comfortable to explain to me what it is that, how you understand this and where do you see this fitting in, just to help them think through that a little bit. But there's got to be a lot of trust. They have to understand that it's a safe space. We also need to give them time to think about it and not just have to give us an answer. So maybe you do that in a follow-up meeting or in the same meeting, depending on the situation. And it's something, there's going to be a very fine line between making the client feel like they are they're now being examined, like I'm in an exam, or all that kind of stuff. But the more we can get them to talk back to us and relay the concept back to us, the more we'll understand and also learn where are we missing the point with them from that point of view. People often feel, or when they feel confused, that's when they do nothing. So they'll sit there and look at you and go like, that's fantastic, Frans, I understand, but they're really actually confused, but they just don't want to look stupid. So, but then they do nothing. Like, doesn't matter how good the advice is, doesn't matter how aligned the advice is. If they are confused, they are probably not going to move forward. And if they move forward and they don't understand why they have this stuff and what it is doing, then obviously at some point they might just say, no, I'm going to cancel this. So, and again, I'm going to do a lot of the things that Sam has actually said this morning, to say, well, take one idea, and then do something with that. So take something that you have to explain often. whether it's something like diversification or retirement income or a tax concept. Think about RAs and tax deductions and things like that. Maybe there's something around a will or something around estate planning or something, and then see if you can rewrite those in 3 different ways. Maybe you write a 1 sentence that explains that particular thing. Maybe you do something that's a minute and something that's 5 minutes, right? So if you can write those down, so that'll be like a single line, like a 1 minute read and a 5 minute read. And you can even take that and make a 1 minute video and make a 5 minute video about that thing. You don't have to post it anywhere, but it's quite interesting when you do record something and you look back at it and you listen to yourself and watch yourself. You're going to learn a lot, things that are missing that nobody needs to come and tell you. You'll just say, oh, why am I doing that? Why am I saying it that way? Why am I umming and ahhing so much like I'm probably doing today? So that's really important. So once you can explain simply, then obviously the next challenge is showing up often enough. And this is the one thing that we probably struggle with. If I look at, we did a poll the other day where we were asking to people, to financial advisors, like what's most important to you in your business right this second? And there was a few options, and the 2 options, the one that was voted for the most, because you could only choose one, was to build a sustainable, future-proof business. And the other big thing is acquiring clients. And I've seen that. Doesn't matter where I ask the questions, doesn't matter who I ask the questions to, client acquisition is always one of the top 2 or 3 things that are important to people. Everybody's always looking for more clients in most cases. And the biggest thing is we don't know how to get more clients. We don't know where to go find them, because obviously, we've been cold calling for a long time, and that doesn't seem to work that well anymore. It still does, but it's much harder. And the quality is maybe also not the way that it was many years ago. So we got to find other ways and make it easier for ourselves or for our team. If there's a team behind you that's sort of looking for clients or that needs to get clients in the door, we can make it a bit easier by doing the things that Sam was talking about earlier and becoming trusted even before they've spoken to us. But the challenge is showing up enough for people to start recognizing you. So that's the second thing I want to talk about, is that consistency beats perfection. You go back to any of these well-known creators or creators that you follow, go look at their very first videos and see how bad that was. But they are excellent today. And maybe by the time you got to learn about them and see them, they were excellent already. But they built a following. And I just want to say as well, just on this point, is that it's not all about building a following, right? This is about being seen. So you don't have to do all the things that I'm saying today on social media. Just think about being seen. That consistency beats perfection. We wait until our messages are perfect, until we have the right setup and the right lights and the right audio and all that kind of stuff. Or, until I've done 6 courses on public speaking and, I don't know, I've rehearsed 3,000 times and I have presented 5 million times to my family, then I will get on stage, or then I will maybe go and speak at a business or a school or somewhere. But that's not really how we learn. We learn by publishing. We learn by repeating. We learn by making the video and publishing the video. We learn by writing and getting it out there, all that kind of stuff. So this is really, really important. And perfection is I always wanted to use an Afrikaans word now, but perfection is a way for us to avoid, right? Perfection is often the thing that hides the fear. And we use it as a tool to hide fear, whether it's fear of judgment or fear of being wrong or fear of sounding too simple. You know how many years, and I still do this, I can sit here and say lots of things to you, but I used to sit in the audience and then listen to certain icons of mine. I just thought to myself, geez, what, I will never get there. These people are just so far ahead. The things they are talking about, the things they are saying, the things they know, just I'm never going to catch up. I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to be able to do what they do. They will just forever be that far ahead. So what did I do? I didn't do much. Okay, until I started. And everything really started when we started the show back in, well, I guess the podcast back in 2019. And then when we started the show during lockdown here on YouTube, things started changing because I was talking a lot and I was learning a lot and I was interviewing a lot of people. And suddenly everything accelerated. And suddenly I found myself in the same rooms as those icons of mine, speaking with them, speaking alongside them often as well. And, I still am in awe of all of those people. But it then dawned on me, like, just because I was consistent and because I went through the thing and stopped worrying about how far behind I was, I actually had the privilege now to be among them and to talk, about things that really matter to me and things that I feel is important. And there are things that we all say the same thing. That's something that you realize at some point, that you start saying and having a certain viewpoint. And then there are things that you see differently. And that's the thing that also make you unique. It's not about just, I'm just going to focus on this weird, wonderful little niche. Not only that, but it's also more about, well, I have this view. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. For some people, I'll be right. For some people, I'll be wrong. But I have a viewpoint, and so do they. And that's where the magic comes, and that's where we all start adding to for everyone to benefit from that. So I think, just think about this. If your intention is to really help people and you want to make a difference, that kind of message that goes out, instead of saying, well, there's 5 million drafts to get to the perfect message, just that helpful message might mean more to that person. Doesn't matter the fact that it's maybe not perfect, or maybe you missed something, or you said something too technical or whatever, but that will be much more valuable than the message just sitting there, a half-drafted article, a half-drafted email, half-drafted WhatsApp message, a meeting that you never set up. So those things are really important. So consistency, I mean, that's the thing that builds trust. And I can say that from this show as an example, that this is what changed everything. The consistency is the thing that started building trust. Because, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that happen off the back. If you missed it, go back to Sam's segment. But he definitely sort of said why this is probably happening. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you show up consistently, right? Whether it's in public, whether it's on social media, whether it's in written media, video, it doesn't matter. But if you're consistent and people see you often, they will recognize you and they will be comfortable with you. I mean, there are many names that we can throw around, right? Where people feel, I just look at Terence, like the way that Terence has built his business. I mean, he started off on Twitter. Like, I know he was a big Twitter guy. I'm like, I'm not a Twitter guy, but Terence did fantastic with that. He managed to do it really, really well. People saw him, they trust him. Kobus, we all know, like, is all over. He's visible everywhere. So, Warren Ingram, Kim Potgieter, you can name them. Like, and you may have a certain viewpoint about any of these people, but the fact of the matter is that they are out there in all different shapes and sizes, in the sense of print media, social media, video, speaking at conferences. They are out there. And those things is what make a difference. And the thing about the personal brand that Sam has spoken about this morning is that they are the personal brands for their businesses. So people will get in touch with their businesses because of them, but they don't necessarily do all of the work. They do some of the work, but some of the work is done by other financial advisors and planners, maybe depending on their setup. But it becomes so powerful for everybody in your business that we underestimate how much consistency really, really matters. Okay, but we can show up as much as we want. That's also not enough. We also need to feel, obviously, that there's a human being behind the message, because otherwise we can just make faceless YouTube videos and have logos and colors and all sorts of things that we see. So the third thing I want to talk about is personality creates connection. You got to be yourself. Like, that's not about being authentic. I don't know, all those words, we've heard that. But just be yourself. Just be who you are. And the most important thing for me is be the same everywhere. I always say to my wife, like, if I show up differently at home than I do in the public, you first hit me with a koekroller, and then you tell me, like, come on, now you're two different people. because I don't want there to be a different experience. I don't try and be Rian Kruiwagen who reads the news perfectly every single week and don't get any older. I'm just who I am, and I will do things in the way that I do it. I'm always respectful. I'm always trying to be professional, but I'm a plain person. I just say things the way they are, and sometimes I I do speak before I think. But it's important, right? Because people will follow people. They don't follow business names. And Daniel Priestley spoke about this at our events before. He speaks about it on social media. He writes about it in his books that if you go and look, Tim Cook has so many more followers than Apple does. I mean, just think about how massive Apple is. The same goes for some of the sports stars. Like more people follow that specific player than all of the soccer clubs and all of them that their following combined. Like more people follow Ronaldo than any of those combined. So there's so many proof out there that people want to connect with people and they want to listen to people. They don't listen to brands. Okay. But the people is the way into the business or into the brand. So that becomes really, really important. And clients often choose advisors that they feel that they can relate to. So think about the stuff that Derek Notman does with Coupler, right? So he's got that system where, it matches clients with potential advisors. So those things are really helpful when you have a business with a number of advisors, but it could also probably help if you just one advisor. You want to make sure when clients are looking to work with you that it is a good fit or not. But it doesn't only look at what the client is looking for. It also looks at what the advisor is looking for and what's important to them and what kind of people they are. So there's a match on a different level with that. And that's what people are intuitively built to look for people like themselves, I believe. And that's really, really important. Most of our businesses are probably, we all sound the same, right? We care. We tailor your plan. We are trusted. We client first. All that stuff is like we all say the same thing. When you go to our websites, we all say that we're doing estate planning and retirement planning and investment planning and that kind of stuff. And those words may be true. It's absolutely because that's what it is, but they don't really create connection. Your point of view really matters. I've said this a number of times before in other episodes, also this morning. What you believe about money, advice, and behavior, and life for that matter, really helps people decide whether you are the right fit or not. And your way won't be the way for everybody. And I also say that there is a danger in, don't let what you believe influence what other people believe or what they should do or shouldn't do because of your belief, or you don't do certain things. I've had this before where I work with advisors where they refused to do any investments for clients that are exposed to the markets. They only did guaranteed investment plans because they don't want to deal with the aftermath of a market. They don't like the ups and downs. It stresses them out, etc. They themselves haven't invested in the markets, etc. So their belief about these things are influencing what they are advising to clients. So there is a line between the two that we need to be really, really careful of. But just know that your view matters and your approach to things matter. And you shouldn't be afraid to talk about that or to share that. So write down 5 beliefs that you hold about money or advice and turn each one of those into a piece of content, right? So, there's lots of stuff to do. Please don't try and do all of the things I'm sharing today, but see which of those things you can do. So when your personality starts coming through, let me just take a step back because things come into my mind as I'm going through this. And look at what the guys at Money and Medicine is doing. Right, they've chosen like that we're going to help medical professionals, and they are quite happy to start right at the bottom, and where the guys are they are sort of getting to the end of their qualification, or they're into their residency and all that kind of stuff, and they help them and support them, and they want to grow with them, right? But they have their way, and they are quite comfortable with their way and the way they speak and the way they come across and the way that they present themselves. But it's so uniquely them. I don't think there's anybody else that can copy that. They can try, but they will not be able to copy that. So what Stefan and Werner and the team is doing is they're going to go to great lengths. They keep doing the right stuff like they're doing. They're going to go to be hyper successful, I believe. So those are the kinds of things where just be you, just do things that the way that you believe they should be done. Okay. Right. So when your personality then starts coming through, and then stories become easier to tell as well. And stories are what people really remember. So the fourth thing that creators and influencers are really good at, that storytelling matters more than information. We are built for stories. We all know this. Clients don't remember every fact. I mean, of course they do. Do they? No, because otherwise you would tell them something once in a quote and they would just go, yeah, we got this and we remember this. If you want to test yourself, sit in the next review meeting or whatever next meeting you have with a client and ask them, what do you remember from our previous meeting, and see what they remember. I promise they're going to go like, oh crap, I don't remember anything because life happened and everything happened. So just test yourself on that. But clients, they don't remember every fact, every feature or technical detail. They are not built for that. But tell them a story, and I can promise you that they are going to remember that story or that example or anything that they could relate to. If you think about these memory games as well, or memory hacks and things that people are teaching people how to remember things easier, they always say connect two things to each other. So if somebody gives you their name, for example, like, how many of us, by the time you get to the third person, you already can't remember the first person's name? And you can sort of counteract that forgetfulness by saying, well, when you hear, oh, that person is Francois, you can remember, say, oh, what other Francois do I know? Or maybe they've got a certain feature and you can sort of say, oh, Francois and the red hair, for example, whatever that may be. But there's something that you can connect it to. So when people find that in the story or the example or so forth, they will remember those kinds of things as well. So we have so many stories. I've said this on the show previously, and I mean, there's lots of stuff around this, but we have so many stories just from our existing clients. If you're just starting out and you don't really have many clients, then tell stories from your own life or your own family. Just, you can change the names and so on, but take things that have happened and explain and use those in your stories, right? But the more stories you have from clients, like there's this stuff that you deal with every single day, but we don't take the time to write them down. We don't take the time to just say, well, how can we use this with other clients? Is this a story that, when it comes to somebody who maybe there's something, I just had a message yesterday from someone telling me all the things that happened. And it's crazy. Like, I don't understand half the things, because it's very technical and very medical, medically sort of medical things that happened. But it's crazy. And my first thing is like, I'm sure there is like probably a claim there if I listen to what's happened. But that would be such a powerful story. Like if you wanted to relay what critical illness does and how it protects you, and it could be that maybe they don't have any cover in place. But I mean, if that's an advisor and that happened to their client, say like, this is what happened. And if they had this cover, this is what would have happened. But unfortunately, they did not. So this is what. So there's not always like a positive outcome. It could also be a negative thing to do that. I'm writing an article for next month's Money Marketing, which is going to focus exactly on strategic tension. And this is one of those things that would speak to that. But really, really useful when we can do that. Stories help people see themselves as well without feeling attacked or embarrassed, because you don't say, as soon as we tell a story about the same situation, but that happened to somebody else, we move the focus from the person to the story and the matter at hand without them feeling like, oh no, this is, no, I'm bad. I didn't do this. So by saying, what, we have people similar to this, or what, I have this other client where this and this is story. It makes me think of this. It's very similar to this. That was their story. That's what happened. I can promise you those things are going to land and be so, so powerful. And those things clients can go and relate to their friends and family and business colleagues, etc. And you can do this ethically by just changing the details, as I said before, combining certain patterns. You can also combine multiple stories with each other. Take this from that story and this from that story and make up a new story. The thing is that you using storytelling to drive home a message or maybe to provide an insight or to bring about a change in behavior for people. You can use this simple story structure. You can say, well, what happened, what the person believed, what changed, and what others can learn. So you can use that if it's difficult for you to tell the story. Because I think the other thing is, just like me in these episodes, because I typically have a bit of a couple of bullet points, and then I just talk about whatever comes to mind. So it often means that I veer off script because things pop into my head, and I maybe elaborate too much on certain ideas because I'm trying to bring home a message, right? But the danger with that is that you might very well lose the essence of what you're trying to say because we're bolting on all of these things. So by having a structure can also be very useful. You don't make the story too long when you are telling it. A story doesn't have to be as like a 6-season kind of thing. And stories work, as I said, because they meet people where they are. I think that's very important, and that sort of then brings us to the next lesson, the fifth one, which is influencers understand audience psychology. Now, I think a lot of the stuff that Sam shared this morning was also sort of around psychology, but also physiology, about how does the brain work and that kind of those kinds of things. But good creators know people are scrolling, they are distracted, and they are very quick to move on, right? I mean, I can see it in the numbers here on the screen, etc., as well as things move up and down, and there's lots of that I can see. But they don't assume attention, right? They earn it. So they want to make sure that they are doing things that are really powerful in that sense. People don't pay attention because something is important. They pay attention because it feels relevant to them now. You could be saying, and this is why it's important to also repeat your message. So you could be saying the same thing and nobody hears you until that happens. So take, for example, I'm going to take a very rudimentary example. Yeah, I hope I don't offend anyone or say something I shouldn't. But you can talk about becoming a father and a mother as much as you want, right? Until that couple, until the wife is pregnant, like they would not hear a word that you're saying. But suddenly, sure, Francois is everywhere talking about this stuff, and it's such valuable information, but you've been talking about this for 5 years. But only because they now having a baby and starting a family, does everything that you've been saying become relevant? And are they then able to go and consume all of your content and learn a lot and see what they need to do, build familiarity, build trust, and then say, oh, we've got to speak to Francois? Or, are they listening to someone else who does that? Is there enough voices there so that they can listen to Francois and to someone else so that they can sort of say, oh, yeah, they're basically saying the same thing, or, Francois is saying this, but the other person is saying that, and why is there a difference? And they can really then start making informed decisions and say, well, who do they best align with? So that's really, really matter. And that first line really matters. Like, it should speak to a worry, right? When we start saying, well, we want to grab someone's attention, or whenever they're ready for that, it should speak to a worry or a question or a mistake, a desire or attention that they might be, that they already have. Like, that's the important part. Curiosity can be used with care. Like, I'm all about staying curious, but the aim is not to create fear. Never, like, some people love fear tactics and fear marketing or fear-based marketing. Like, I hate those. Like, there's some people in the tech space who just love that. And everywhere else, you see them everywhere, actually, where people will drive you with fear. Again, look at the biggest scams and things that's going on. It's often driven by greed and fear, right? So that's important. But anyway, so it is to help people engage with useful ideas, things that are the right things that for them to know and to consider. So just think about how, if you are writing an article or you are creating a video, like, what would be that opening line, and maybe think about that, about how you can say things differently. Can you start with a question? Can you start with a specific statement that will grab their attention, or what can you do? So then once people are paying attention, right, the deep opportunity is then to make them feel part of something. That's really important. Think about the show again. I think a lot of you feel really part of the community and part of what we're doing here. But it's a fact. Number 6, community beats broadcasting. because you can get 1 million people to see your video. If only 5 of them care about it, yeah, then the others are probably wasted. So the more people you can get to care about this, the more powerful it's going to be, the more of an impact it's going to have. So long before people start publishing, they are also building a place to belong. Their audience feels seen, heard. Just think about your own clients. Like they feel, do your clients, like you probably ask yourself a question, like, do they feel seen? Are they heard? And are they part of a shared conversation? Because often it's we that drive the conversation and they don't really get to say much because it's hard for them. They don't know how to participate in some cases. So if we just broadcast information, we just push out information, basically saying like, this is what I know, right? This is just information sharing and it's just more overload. But if it's more of a community, it says, well, here's a place where people like you can learn and grow. Doesn't mean that you need to start a community. It just means that you have a resource available that consists maybe of articles and books and videos and talks and all sorts of things that people can learn from. Again, you can create this through repeated themes, client education, questions, comments, events, like I've spoken about that a lot, and useful ongoing conversation. And all of these things, like once you've recorded them, I think this is why the online space is so fantastic, because once you've recorded it, it can keep on working for you. One, you get better at the message, but two, also you have an asset that works for you when you are not there or you're busy with other stuff. And again, you don't need a massive launch. I mean, we only have about 2,000 subscribers at this point, 1,992 when I looked at it yesterday. So we don't have a big subscriber base. We don't get millions of views on our videos. But it doesn't matter, because the core group of people who really care about what we do, that's what matters. And we've got enough of those to really make a difference and to have an impact from that point of view. So you don't need a large community. It needs to feel to the people that are part of that it's relevant to them, that it's safe, and that it is worth coming back to. And I want to say thank you to every single person who's been coming back to the show. So the community grows when people trust the person leading it. And today, trust is shaped strongly by visibility. And that's all what Sam's segment is actually also about. The last one, 7, visibility creates authority. We still believe that expertise alone creates credibility. No, it's one of the things. You definitely need that. It will never be replaced. But if people can't see it, they don't know what you know or what your view is. This is why I often say people will criticize articles that other advisors have written and published on MoneyWeb and so forth, but they won't add their own voice to it. They just say, no, this is nonsense. This is wrong. This is like, but they wouldn't. That's such a big opportunity to take that article and say, well, this is a great article. Like, here's our view on it. And this is how we approach this particular problem. Focus on the problem that's being addressed in the article. And your view can be complementary to that, or it could be contradictory to that. Doesn't matter. But you are saying, well, this is how we view this, and this is how we apply our expertise to the situation. So visibility will not replace competence. If you have a lot of visibility but no competence, that's a bad thing. But if you have a lot of competence and not very much visibility, that's also a problem. If you have both, that's a superpower. So that's really, really amazing. So just think about those kinds of things and how you can drive that and become more visible. And again, I want to say it doesn't have to be on social media. Social media followings today also doesn't matter that much anymore. Most algorithms are looking at what people are interested in and are they consuming your content. And if they are, then they'll just show it to more people, whether they follow you or not. So that doesn't really matter that much anymore. But just think about where can you be more visible? Where can you be more visible? Where can you show up more? Where can people that needs to hear your message listen to, read that, watch that message from that point of view? So the 7 things to recap quickly: explain things simply. The second one, show up consistently. The third one, let your personality come through. Don't be shy. Use stories people can remember. Understand how people pay attention. Build community, not only an audience. And use visibility to build authority. So I want to challenge you, go and record one video, just a short one, write one post, tell one story, start one series, write one client explanation in plain language. Just do some of those things and see what you can learn from that. People do not follow expertise. They follow people who make them feel understood. All right, fantastic. Thank you very much for today. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. And until then, we wish you a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, be blessed and prosper, and stay curious and continue to raise the bar. Thanks so much. Have a lovely one. Love you lots. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on Propulsion. If you found value in today's episode, then there's plenty more where this came from. You can find all our previous episodes right here on the podcast, as well as on our YouTube channel. And talking about the YouTube channel, we go live every single Friday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. and we host many different guests, and we also talk about very interesting topics. And on the live show, there's also some incredible segments hosted by some of the most well-known and influential financial planning professionals. So you are most welcome to join us every single Friday. Put it in your diary and we will see you there. And on that note, also please do check out propulsion.co.za/community for all of the goodness and learn more about how you can become part of our amazing community and how that would benefit you, your business, and your career. So on that note, stay curious and keep raising the bar.